A doctor walked into a hospital room in Canada, not during a war, not in a dictatorship, not in a country the world considers dangerous. In Canada, in 2018. And what that doctor did to the woman lying in that bed will make you question everything you have ever believed about one of the most trusted, most celebrated nations on the face of this earth. This is not ancient history. This is not a rumor. This is a story the Canadian government spent decades hoping would never reach you. It has reached you now. Canada has a reputation the rest of the world envies. Peaceful, multicultural, progressive, the kind of country people point to and say, that is what civilization looks like. But underneath that reputation, buried inside government hospitals, locked inside filing cabinets that survivors were never allowed to open, there is a secret so deliberate, so systematic, and so grotesque that when the women it happened to finally spoke out, officials looked them in the eye and told them they were mistaken. They were not mistaken. They were silenced. And the difference between those two things is the entire story. The women targeted were Indigenous. First Nations, Métis, Inuit, the first people of a land that was stolen from their ancestors before memory began. By the 20th century, Canada had already taken their children through residential schools. It had already erased their languages. It had already fractured their families through the 60s scoop. But there was one thing the system had not yet fully controlled: their bodies, their ability to carry life, their right to decide whether or not they would become mothers. And so the system found a method. And that method looked exactly like medicine. A woman would arrive at a hospital, sometimes in labor, sometimes for a routine checkup, sometimes sick and frightened and far from her community. She was already vulnerable, already in a place where the language on the walls and the forms and the faces of authority was not her language. And at the most exposed, most painful, most human moment of her life, sometimes while she was actively in the middle of giving birth, a doctor or a nurse would place a consent form in front of her. The form was in English. She may not have understood every word. She may have been told it was standard procedure. She may have been told she had no choice. And she would sign. And she would wake up unable to ever carry another child. Not because of illness. Not because of anything her body did. Because of a signature made while she was in labor. Because of a pen pressed into her hand at the moment she had the least power to say no. Canada called that consent. This was not one rogue physician in one isolated ward. Survivors came forward from Saskatchewan, from Alberta, from British Columbia, from the Northwest Territories, from Yukon. The same pattern across thousands of miles and dozens of hospitals. Indigenous women. Pubal ligations performed without genuine informed consent. Signed forms they did not fully understand. And then silence, protected by the very institutions that had everything to lose if the truth was ever spoken aloud. Some women did not find out for years. They had been trying to have children, trying to grow the families they already loved. And when they finally sat down with a doctor to understand why they could not conceive, they were told for the first time what had been done to them inside a Canadian hospital. Not by the hospital, not by a government letter, not by anyone who owed them an apology, by a stranger reading their own medical file back to them across a cold examination table. One survivor was told by a nurse, "You people have too many children anyway." One woman was told the procedure could be reversed. It could not. One woman was asked to sign while she was still on the operating table, not yet fully conscious from the anesthesia, before anyone had properly explained what surgery she was about to undergo. And they signed. Because when you are an Indigenous woman inside a Canadian hospital and a person in a white coat is standing above you with a form, you do not feel like you have a choice. Because in that moment, in that room, surrounded by that system, you don't. The women who tried to speak were not believed. Indigenous women reporting institutional harm in Canada have been treated historically as unreliable, as confused, as exaggerating. Medical files that could have proved their claims were missing, or poorly maintained, or stored inside government archives that survivors had no legal pathway to access. The system that caused the harm was also the system that investigated itself, and it cleared itself every single time. In 2017, a group of Indigenous women launched a class action lawsuit against the government of Saskatchewan. In 2018, the United Nations formally demanded that Canada investigate. In 2019, the Senate of Canada released a report. The report confirmed the practice was real. It was widespread. It was ongoing. The Senate of Canada confirmed that Indigenous women were still being coercively sterilized as recently as 2018. Not in 1945, not in 1972, 2018. After the report was released, the government expressed deep concern, announced further studies, and moved on. No doctor has faced criminal charges. Not one. No hospital has lost its operating license. Not one. No government official has gone to prison. Not one. The survivors are still alive, still waiting, still carrying what was taken from them inside a system that has never once looked them in the face and said, "We did this, and we will make it right." And Canada is still collecting humanitarian awards on the world stage. What makes this so suffocating is how ordinary it looked from the outside. It did not happen in a secret facility. It did not happen in a war zone or a basement or a place the world never sees. It happened in clean, well-lit, government-funded Canadian hospitals, under fluorescent lights, with clipboards and consent forms and medical language designed to confuse rather than inform. It happened because the people running those institutions believed, consciously or unconsciously, that some women's futures were worth less than others. And those women went home afterward. They lived their lives. They grew older in silence. And that silence lasted decades. Now you have broken it by watching this far. And that means something. There are people in your life who believe Canada is beyond this, who will hear this story and feel the ground shift beneath them. Share this video right now. Do not scroll past. Every single share puts this story in front of someone who needs to see it. Every comment tells the algorithm this story cannot be buried again. Drop enough in the comments right now if you watch to the very end. Tell us where you are watching from. And if there is a piece of history sitting in the back of your mind, a story that felt too dark, too hidden, too deliberately erased to be real, drop it in the comments below. This channel was built for exactly that. We cover the history that powerful institutions decided you did not need to know. And we are nowhere near finished. Because the next video we are preparing will connect what you just watched to a pattern so much wider and so much older than Canada. A pattern involving governments, hospitals, and international organizations that will stop you mid-scroll. You will not want to miss it. Follow this page right now. Share this video before you do anything else. Because silence is precisely what they were counting on. And you just refuse to give it to them.